Picture this. It's late at night at LaGuardia International Airport.
Right.
The tarmac is super dark, like illuminated only by that rhythmic flashing of runway lights. And you see the sweeping, rotating beams of ground vehicles moving around.
Yeah, that classic airport glow.
Exactly. And you're listening to the air traffic control radio, right? Suddenly, the routine, calm cadence of aviation communication shatters.
It's terrifying.
It really is. You hear this voice, an air traffic controller, and the tone is just absolutely desperate. They are urgently pleading into the microphone saying, truck one stop, truck one stop, truck one stop.
Oh, man.
But then there's this heavy, agonizing silence that follows on the frequency because, the words are just too late.
It is the kind of audio that honestly makes your blood run cold when you hear it.
Yeah.
You're basically listening to human language losing a foot race with physical momentum. The urgency in that voice is the exact moment someone realizes a catastrophic sequence has already, crossed the point of no return.
And that chilling realization is exactly what we're focusing on for today's deep dive. We're looking at the tragic collision that took place on March 22, 2026.
Right, the one between Air Canada Express Flight 8646 and an ARFF truck.
Exactly, an aircraft rescue and firefighting truck right out there on the runway. But our mission today isn't just to rubberneck at the wreckage,
No, of course not.
We want to understand the why. We're looking at the chain reaction, the systemic failures that made this tragedy almost inevitable.
And to do that, we're relying on a really compelling, incredibly detailed breakdown from the YouTube channel Columbus Aviation.
Yes, which is a fantastic source. And honestly, the dedication behind that specific source material is worth noting right up front.
Oh, absolutely.
The creator of that channel felt this breakdown was so vital to public safety that they pushed through a severe illness just to get the information out.
Yeah, they were resting their voice between takes and everything.
Right. It really tells you that this isn't just aviation trivia for them. It's a critical safety lesson that they felt the public needed to hear immediately.
It really sets the tone for the whole thing.
It does. Because when you analyze aviation disasters, you realize it's almost always a domino effect. The first domino to fall is almost never the actual crash itself,
Right. It's usually something super mundane.
Exactly. The first domino is usually some seemingly unrelated anomaly miles away or hours prior.
Yeah.
And to figure out how a massive firefighting truck ended up directly in the path of a landing commercial jet, we have to rewind. We have to look at an entirely different crisis that was unfolding on the ground.
Yeah, so to find that first fallen domino, you basically have to completely ignore the active runway for a moment.
Okay.
You have to look over at this isolated patch of tarmac. That is where United Airlines Flight 2384 is parked.
Right, so here's the inciting incident. United Flight 2384 is on the ground, and they declare an emergency.
A pretty nasty one, too. Seriously. There's a foul odor spreading through the cabin, and it's not just unpleasant, it's actually a potential biohazard. It's literally making the flight attendants in the back of the plane physically ill.
Wow.
Yeah, the crew is highly concerned. They are telling the tower, we need to go into any available gate at this time. They are just desperate to get these passengers and crew members off the plane before the situation escalates.
And that desperation introduces a severe logistical bottleneck. I mean, LaGuardia is a highly constrained, geographically compact airport on a good day.
Right, it's tiny compared to JFK.
Exactly. But in this specific moment, there is a critical failure point in the infrastructure. There is only a single air traffic controller working the tower.
One person.
Yeah.
Just one. And that single controller simply cannot allocate a gate for the United flight because there are literally no gates available.
None at all.
Right. And the United crew is watching the clock. They're telling the tower they only have so much time before things get worse. So the controller makes a call.
A very fateful call. Yeah. They dispatch a stair truck and a firefighting truck over to the isolated area where the United plane is parked, just in case they need to do an emergency evacuation right there on the tarmac.
Which, to be fair, is a completely logical, by-the-book response to a contained medical emergency when a gate isn't an option.
Makes total sense.
But to understand why this creates a hazard, we have to look at the standard operating procedure that was missing that night.
Right.
Normally, a major airport tower has distinct roles. You have a ground controller who speaks to the baggage carts, the fire trucks, and the planes taxiing to the gate.
They handle everything touching the pavement, basically.
Exactly. Then you have a tower controller, also called local control, who speaks exclusively to the planes taking off and landing on the active runways.
Two completely different jobs.
Yeah. But because of severe staffing shortages, this one individual had to switch mental frequencies and physical radios constantly. They were merging two entirely separate, highly demanding jobs into one overloaded brain.
Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine you're a solo juggler, right? You got 3 or 4 balls in the air, standard night traffic, planes landing, planes taxiing.
Sounds stressful enough.
Totally.
Yeah.
And suddenly, someone throws a flaming bowling pin into your routine. That flaming bowling pin is the United emergency.
That's a great way to put it.
You can't just drop it. You have to focus entirely on caching it, managing it, keeping the fire from spreading, but you still have all those other balls in the air.
What's fascinating here is the cognitive science behind what happens to the human brain in that exact scenario. Task saturation is essentially like your computer's RAM maxing out.
Oh, like when everything just freezes.
Exactly. When a computer runs out of random access memory, it doesn't just slow down, it stops processing new inputs entirely to protect the core system.
It just freezes up on the new tasks.
Precisely. When that controller is dealing with sick flight attendants, a stranded aircraft, coordinating with ground vehicles, and trying to find a gate, their cognitive load maxes out. The brain biologically sheds peripheral inputs. The visual and auditory cortex literally filter out the other balls in the air.
That is wild.
The controller's attention becomes completely anchored to resolving this real-time, high-stakes medical emergency on the ground. The threat is right in front of them, actively unfolding. And when the brain anchors like that, the incoming air traffic becomes a cognitive blind spot.
So while the controller's mental bandwidth is entirely consumed by the United flight on the ground, physics is still happening in the air.
It never stops.
Right. Descending through the dark sky is another aircraft. And this aircraft has quite a story.
We're pivoting now from the logistical nightmare on the ground to the aircraft that was directly in the crosshairs. It was a Bombardier CRJ-900.
Operated by Jazz Aviation for Air Canada Express.
Yeah, exactly. On the radio, they were going by the call sign Jazz 646.
Now, the source material from Columbus Aviation goes incredibly deep on the specific history of this exact plane. Like, really deep.
They definitely did their homework.
They did. It was registered as Charlie Golf, November 1, Juliet Zulu, or CGNJZ. Its manufacturer serial number, the MSN, was 150052.
Which is super specific.
I know, right? The video even details that it was initially built as a COJ-705, which is structurally similar to a CRJ-550, but with different seating configurations. It had a whole life before this night.
A very documented multi-stage life.
Yeah, it originally wore this red Jazz livery. Then, as corporate branding shifted, it was reconfigured and repainted into what aviation enthusiasts affectionately call the toothpaste livery.
A toothpaste livery, yeah.
And then, a few years later, it was repainted again into the current Air Canada livery. Now, I have to be honest and play the skeptic for a second here on behalf of anyone listening who might be wondering the same thing.
Go for it.
Why does the YouTuber spend valuable time detailing the serial number, the seating configurations, and the various paint jobs of this plane?
That seems like a lot of trivia, right?
It does. We're talking about an impending, fatal collision between two massive vehicles. Does it really matter that a decade ago it looked like a tube of toothpaste?
I totally get that.
It just feels like we're pausing a high-stakes action movie to read the manufacturer's warranty on the stunt car.
That is a totally fair reaction when you first encounter deep aviation analysis. It really does seem like trivia at first glance.
Right.
But there is a very deliberate reason for it within aviation safety culture. Detailing an aircraft's lineage like that, its registration, its factory origins, its liveries, it humanizes the machine.
Like giving it a biography, essentially.
Exactly. When you hear that meticulous history, you realize this isn't just a generic metal tube that suddenly popped into existence to be part of a tragedy.
That makes a lot of sense.
This is a machine that has a long documented history of carrying thousands of people safely across the continent for years. It went through different phases, different paint jobs, different crews.
But a whole career.
Yeah, it had a long history of safe, incredibly mundane operation. Establishing that long, peaceful history makes the sudden, violent end to its journey on Runway 4 all the more jarring.
Wow.
It vividly contrasts the absolute reliability of the physical hardware with the extreme fragility of the human systems managing it.
Okay, that actually completely changes how I view those details. It's like reading the obituary of the aircraft itself before we talk about its final moments.
That's a great way to look at it.
Because that long, safe history abruptly meets a frantic, chaotic present moment. at exactly 11:37 p.m.
Yeah, this is where the timeline compresses. We enter a 60-second window where the ground emergency and the descending aircraft converge in the worst possible way.
Let's lay out the minute by minute here and visualize the airport layout for everyone. It is 11:37 p.m.
Yep.
The single controller, who is still completely bogged down by the United emergency, gets a radio call from the fire truck.
Yeah.
The truck says, LaGuardia Tower, requesting to cross 4 at Delta. Now, to picture this, taxiway Delta intersects directly across runway 4. And remember, this truck is only out there to get to the isolated United flight.
Yeah, they're just trying to help.
The controller responds, Truck 1 and company, cross 4 at Delta. They give the official clearance for a massive piece of ground equipment to drive directly across an active runway.
But simultaneously, and this is the fatal intersection, Air Canada Express Flight 8646 is on short final for that exact same runway.
Which is terrifying.
It is. When an aircraft is on short final, it means its landing gear is down, it's fully aligned with the runway strip, and it's merely seconds away from its wheels touching the pavement.
It's totally committed to landing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the same controller has just told them, number 2, clear land 4.
Let's define that too. Number 2 means they are the second aircraft sequence to land, and clear land 4 is the absolute authorization to touch down on runway 4.
So there's no ambiguity there.
None at all.
Yeah.
So the controller gave a commercial jet clearance to land on the runway at high speed and gave a massive fire truck clearance to drive directly across that exact same stretch of pavement.
At the exact same time.
At the exact same time.
And that's because of that RAM overload, that task saturation we talked about earlier.
Right, the cognitive blind spot.
Yes.
Yeah.
The controller's mental map of the airport had effectively dropped the incoming flight. They were solving the problem right in front of them, moving the fire truck to the biohazard emergency, and the broader situational awareness just completely collapsed.
The audio breakdown of what happens next is just agonizing. We talked about the hook of this deep dive, that urgent pleading.
Yeah, the Stop Truck 1 audio.
Exactly. The controller gives the clearance for the truck to cross at Delta, and then almost immediately the illusion shatters.
Your brain catches up.
The mental map corrects itself,
Yeah.
the cognitive blind spot clears, and the reality of the impending doom just rushes in. The controller keys the mic and says, sorry, truck 1 stop, truck 1 stop, truck 1 stop.
And the truck tries. The driver hits the brakes.
Right.
But we are dealing with the laws of physics now.
Yeah, by 11:38 p.m. the collision happens. The aircraft, coming in at landing speed, strikes the ARFF vehicle.
Unbelievable.
The controller gets back on the radio to the Air Canada flight and says, Jazz 646, I see you collide with vehicle. Just hold position. I know you can't move.
Just devastating to hear.
And then, amidst the shock of watching a catastrophic collision happen right in front of their eyes, that single controller has to instantly start frantically scrambling to redirect the rest of the traffic in the sky.
Because there are still planes everywhere.
Right. They're telling Flight 4195 to stay right where they are on the taxiway, and they're commanding Flight 263, which is right behind the crashed plane, to go round to abort their landing immediately.
It is absolute chaos. And we should point out a really important note about the source methodology here.
Oh, definitely.
The YouTuber from Columbus Aviation mentions that they omitted some of the dead air and unimportant audio for the sake of brevity in their video.
Makes sense for YouTube.
Yeah, but they explicitly state they did not manipulate or reorder the recordings in any way. To prove it, they point viewers to VAS Aviation and at cityaT.com, where anyone can pull the fully unedited audio files to verify the sequence.
They wanted to present the raw truth of the timeline. And honestly, here's where it gets really interesting from a behavioral perspective.
How so?
You hear that audio and your first instinct, probably the instinct of everyone listening right now, is to think, how could you possibly tell a truck to drive in front of a landing plane?
It's the natural reaction.
Listening to the controller yell, stop, stop, is brutal because your brain registers the danger and you hear the controller slam on the verbal brakes.
Right.
But verbal brakes cannot alter the physical momentum of a heavy fire truck already rolling, and they certainly can't stop a commercial jet that is mere feet from the tarmac. The words are completely weightless against the physics.
And when physical momentum takes over and the dust settles on a disaster like this, human instinct demands a target. We want a clear narrative.
We want someone to blame.
Exactly. We want a bad guy. We immediately demand someone to take the fall.
Of course we do. It makes the world feel safe again if we can point a finger and say, that specific person messed up, remove them, and the system is safe.
It's a comforting lie.
But the source material, the Columbus Aviation video, explicitly and passionately warns us against pointing the finger at that single voice on the radio.
Yeah, the Columbus Aviation analysis makes a profound argument here. The YouTuber states very clearly that it is really, really bad to blame it on the controller.
Wow, they defend them that strongly.
They do. They argue that the individual was entirely overwhelmed by the United emergency and the complete lack of support.
But I have to push back here. Wait, the controller literally cleared a fire truck into the direct path of a landing plane.
I know, it sounds indefensible on the surface.
They gave the verbal command that caused the collision. How can the source possibly argue that no one person is to blame?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Columbus Aviation forces us to step back and look at the invisible forces acting on that controller.
Okay, what forces?
Well, the source details the broader context that the aviation industry is currently suffering from massive air traffic control shortages and really general staff shortages across the board.
So they were doing the job of multiple people.
Exactly. The analysis argues that human beings will inevitably make errors under stress. Therefore, a safety system that allows a single mental slip to cause a catastrophe is fundamentally broken.
Ah, I see.
They place the blame squarely on the bureaucratic and systemic strain that put that controller in the tower alone in the first place.
So the source is saying the controller was set up to fail.
According to the analysis, yes. When you have an entire major international airport, LaGuardia, one of the busiest airspaces in the world, and its safety, relies on a single, drastically understaffed human being to flawlessly manage overlapping, high-stakes emergencies without any backup.
It's a disaster waiting to happen.
Exactly. Without a ground controller to share the load or catch a mistake, the system itself is the hazard. The single controller is just the sharp end of the stick.
That clarifies the source's stance perfectly. You can't put a single juggler on stage, throw flaming pins at them for hours, and then blame them when one finally hits the floor.
You really can't.
You have to ask who approved that solo act in the first place, knowing the risks.
And ultimately, the consequences of these systemic failures aren't just logistical debates or YouTube analysis topics. They result in irreversible human tragedies.
That is the heaviest part of this deep dive, the human toll.
Yeah.
The video brings this to a very solemn conclusion, showing an image gallery of the incident and holding a moment of silence. Because this collision wasn't just a crunch of metal on a runway.
No, it wasn't.
2 crew members on board the aircraft were deceased. And we impartially echo the source material's greatest condolences to the families of those lost. It is a heartbreaking reminder of what is actually at stake when we talk about staffing shortages and system redundancies.
And for you listening to this is the analytical lens we want you to take forward. The next time you open a news app or read a headline that quickly blames human error for a catastrophe, whether it's aviation, a train derailment, or a medical mistake, look deeper.
Look past the easy target.
Exactly. Look for the systemic strain. Look for the staff shortages, the budget cuts, and the impossible situations placed on single individuals who were left holding the bag for a broken system.
That is such a crucial perspective shift. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a dark, lingering paradox that is drawn entirely from the details of this source material.
It's a really haunting detail.
Think about the fire truck. The ARFF vehicle was only out there on the dark tarmac to prevent a potential tragedy for the United flight.
Right. It was there to help.
It was dispatched as a lifeline. Consider the haunting irony that the very instrument deployed to ensure human safety, the vehicle designed to save lives, became the exact instrument of a fatal collision.
It really forces you to look at the invisible infrastructure around you differently.
Exactly. If one of the busiest airspaces in the world is secretly operating with zero backup, what other hidden single points of failure exist in the infrastructure you use every day?
It's unsettling to think about.
When you board your next train or cross a major city intersection, ask yourself how many invisible human beings are currently task-saturated, holding the system together by a thread. Think about that the next time you're waiting for a light to change.